My name is Erica Pulley, as you said, and my preferred pronouns are she, her, they, them. I'm really comfortable with all the above. So right now I'm zooming from my bedroom, which I share with my two kids. Usually, this is my where my daughter usually sits for remote school. She's 8 and my son is 5, so we're hunkered down. We are currently in Marin, living with family. My husband's here as well. So we've got a multi-generational, very tight household right now with very little space for us all to be on computers doing our school thing.
Yeah, fun
Um,
times.
and so I'm in the Becca department, which stands for Broadcast and Electronic Communication Arts. Is that right, Becca? Yeah. And so what that kind of boils down to is media studies and video production and audio production, theory, media theory, communication theory. Is kind of a big banner for all of those. Well, so I have been at SF State on and off since I was an undergrad. I did my undergrad, I think like a lot of lecturers at SF State, maybe not so much tenure track faculty, but I did my undergrad in the 2000s in environmental studies. And then I came back after I had my daughter, and I came back for a master's degree. And I started in Becca because I had kind of made connections in Becca with my environmental studies. I was really interested in environmental communication. So I came back and I studied video production. I studied media theory, but my focus for my master's degree was really on climate communication and environmental communication.
Yeah,
So I've been with State for a long time, but I've been teaching in the Becca department for this is my 4th year.
okay,
Yeah.
Why originally did you want to teach, whether that was back in the undergrad days or if that's a more recent kind of motivation?
Yeah. So when I was still in grad, when I was in the grad program, I'm sorry, let me backtrack for a second. So I had, before I had my daughter, I was working in grant writing, and I did that for several years. And then while I was in the master's program at State, I kind of by chance randomly got a job teaching a grant writing course for UC Berkeley Extension. So that was really my first in class, completely unsupported, teaching experience. But it was with kind of adult learner professionals coming to this class, right? So it was a little bit different than a university classroom. And it was a short class. It was just 2 days for 2 weeks. And I liked it, but it scared me. It was so much work and it was really overwhelming. And I was in front of people and had a lot of self-doubt. But every time it was done, it was just huge relief, and it was also felt like a huge success. And then fast forward a couple years, and I started teaching as a grad assistant, graduate teaching associate, actually, in our department. At the time we had video production class, so the students would go to this big, huge lecture, kind of like when you do biology or something, and they go to a big lecture, and then the actual hands-on instruction was broken up into these smaller labs. So I got to go in, and this at the time it was really an opportunity to give grad students a chance to try their hand at pedagogy and teaching and being in front of students. And I got to go into a studio and teach students how to produce in studio productions and how to work in groups, and oftentimes for the first time. And it was, again, it was so scary and overwhelming, and it was hands down the most thrilling experience of my life. I got to know the students personally. We worked together. I learned more about my craft, teaching, than I ever had actually doing it on my own. And so then finally that old sage wisdom, like you learn more from teaching than you do by just studying, finally clicked for me. So I just loved it, and I stayed doing that through all of my master's study. And then I had the opportunity. There were some classes that were open after I graduated, and I just kind of slid right in there. And once again, it was so hard and overwhelming and incredibly gratifying.
Hmm.
Yeah.
How many parallels between you're reminding me of my own experience as a GTA about 5 years ago now. So
Yeah.
in the
Oh,
English department in the writing program. Yeah.
yeah, we probably were like crossing paths one way or another.
Yeah.
Similar timeline. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's kind of a good segue into how you might describe yourself as a learner. And I love how you say, the what you just said about the best way to learn is by teaching. Thinking back to when you were a student and as a teacher, how would you describe yourself as a learner, and how does that maybe inform your teaching styles?
So I think of myself as an alternative learner. I don't really have any other label for it. I was never diagnosed with a learning difficulty, but I think I had to find different ways to to study. I had to find different ways to approach different topics. I always thought I struggled in math, and then when I was in a position way back in the day when I was at community college at City College, San Francisco, um, I I can't remember if I was working at the time or if I was living at home. I can't remember what my dynamics were, but I for the first time in my life I had an opportunity to throw myself into study.
Mm,
And because I always worked, or I always was worried about rent, or I was always juggling other things, I never knew that I actually enjoyed math. I just had to have extra time, extra help, extra focus, extra community. Um, and so I think how that informs my teaching is just understanding that everybody comes at it differently. And if they're not performing on, I don't really do tests in my class.
mm,
That's probably a relic of being an alternative learner, but people perform in their own ways. So I really try to establish that in the beginning of the semester that, maybe you're not comfortable speaking up in class, but I see your work. I see when you put in effort. I see when maybe you fall out in mid semester, but then you come back strong. I can see people um, when they're trying their best, especially when they're in really, difficult situations.
mhm.
So.
Yeah, one of the most valuable kind of teaching techniques or teaching theories that I learned was universal design for learning
Mhm.
a couple years ago now. And really just thinking about how all of our students learn differently and giving them multiple ways to, just like you're saying, ways to kind of perform or ways to show their learning. Um, yeah.
Absolutely, and I think you brought that into the CAP class, and so oftentimes some of these things that I kind of did instinctually, I learned that those are actually pedagogical approaches. So it was nice to have a name put to it.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. Um, well, thinking about remote learning, we all just got thrown into about, almost a full semester ago now. What has been your greatest success or breakthrough? And we can think about this in remote learning, but also in just your teaching career as well.
So I don't think I've had one yet in remote learning. I'm waiting for it to come. I,
Yeah.
every week feels like a new week, and it's a struggle. I'm not going to lie, and I know it's a struggle for our students being online as well. I think breakthrough in learning in general was thinking back to my first semester as a lecturer, and I was given this theory class called Critical Study of Pop Culture. And so there were two real breakthroughs for me. I had worked with the theories that we covered before. Well, actually, three things. This incredible professor in our department, her name is Melissa Camacho.
Hmm.
She's brilliant. She's tough. I learned how to write under her tutelage, and she incredibly generously gave me her materials to teach the class. And I sat down and I looked at them, and I think I started my first week with those, and I went, "Oh my god, I can't do this. This is somebody else's work. I don't understand it." And I scrapped it. Right, I just started over from scratch. And then after that, it was, I knew the theories that I was supposed to be talking about. It, I had used them in practice. Some of them I knew better than others. Um, but I had a breakthrough in understanding how they related to each other
Hmm.
because I had to explain them to students, and I had to help them understand them. So I had this incredible aha moment for myself which allowed me to better explain it to the students.
Mm.
And then I also had the really great fortune to have for that semester, because it was a large class, um, I had a student aide, and I had worked with him before. He was still a student after I had moved out. He was an undergrad, and his name was Adrian Chen. His name still is Adrian Chen. He's no longer a student though. He graduated a while back, and he and I had worked together before. And he said one day, because I'm up there like stiffly lecturing, and I would stay up all night writing these lectures, um, and drinking wine, and then I would like go in, I'd be like, "Ah." And he said, you might want to just like break it up a little bit. You might want to do like a breakout group or discussions or something. And I was like, I can do that. I don't have to just stand up here for 3 hours. And then the first day that I did that, um, I got the students into these groups and we talked about some big topics and kind of complicated theories, and it was the whole room lit up. It was amazing. And so that was my biggest breakthrough, was again sort of alternative approaches, letting students work together, letting them help teach, and letting them sort of like control the pace of the class. So that was a huge moment for me that I always think back to when I'm struggling with how to structure a class.
Amazing. Yeah, that definitely sounds like such a pivotal moment.
Yeah.
Any other ways that your classes are kind of meeting the moment or responding to our current social climate? How do you do
Yes.
that? And we also are just going through an election. We can't deny that either.
No. It is officially, let's see, where it's November 6th, 2020. So this is a little time capsule too. So this semester I have only 3 classes. I say only, again, for anybody who's watching this who's not familiar. Usually um, lecturers are given 5 classes as a full load, which is a lot of teaching. And but I only have 3 this semester, and one is a new class to me. It's a field production class.
Hmm.
Um, and my students, most of them are back home. They don't have access to equipment, certainly not the equipment that we would be using while under typical circumstances. And I think what I've really encouraged for them is that this may not be the first, I'm sorry, this may not be the last time that we have to take different approaches to production or storytelling, right? We just have to, we may find ourselves in the future again having to be resourceful. So they're learning to use their phones in different ways. They're trying to acquire, cheap but good equipment that can help support them in this class and beyond. And I'm really excited. They're just starting their productions now, but one of them is going to really, I haven't seen their first projects. We're going to see them on Monday, but they, at least one of the students doesn't feel comfortable going out and shooting outside, which is understandable. So they're going to tell a little story about what it's like to just be in quarantine, just a little snapshot. The other thing, I'm also teaching I teach a class called Children in Television, but really that's kind of an outdated title. It's really Children in Media. We talk about electronic media in general, and how it impacts children and how it's created for children. And by children, I mean like, 0 to our students' ages, like up to 26, 27, when their brains are still developing, um, and young adults. So one of the things that it was really important to me to look at, to frame the whole semester around COVID and being at home and remote learning and stresses on family, stresses on children, stresses on parents, lack of support throughout, leading up to this. So now parents are truly, so many parents are resourceless. And so we're looking at that. But at one of my, I reached out to the psychology department to ask if somebody could come talk to us about cognitive development to kind of kick off the class. And I made a connection with one of the psychology professors, Dr. J. Pack, and she has been working with students to create social emotional learning modules. And typically they would go into the classroom, like physically go there and give these little modules. Well, she's had to adapt, and they're doing it on their computers, right? They're shooting it with their webcams. And so we are coming together and we're bringing our students together, and our students are going to help with the planning and the production of these modules to support her students who are coming up with well, they're working on content together, but her students have the training and the understanding of what constitutes social emotional learning.
Yeah.
So this is an exciting, and as Pack puts it, there's not too often that you have two departments coming together to work on something, and something that will have, they're working with a school district, I believe in San Mateo. So it will have real world impacts for children who are stuck at home in remote learning, and will be able to watch these videos and teach, and it will support teachers too. So it's pretty exciting.
Wow. Well, I'd love to get my hands on those videos also.
Yeah. Well,
Exciting.
definitely. Yeah, we'll open it up for sure. I'm excited to see what they come up with, the
But
students.
yeah, just to clarify, your students basically do a lot of the editing and all the production work, while the psychology students are doing more of the content, maybe.
Exactly. And then our students, so I should note that only a few of my students are working on this. It's kind of by volunteer. And usually their capstone project in this class that I've kind of been working on for the last couple of years, and work, how to make it a great capstone project is because technically it's not a production class, it's a theory, it's sort of more of a theory class. But it draws students from all over the department. I'm sorry, all over the campus. It's not
Mhm.
just Becca students. But what I do have them do for their final project is to um, put together sort of a pitch and a treatment um, for a children's production. So it could be a television show, it could be a movie, it could be something around there, and they need to apply the concepts and the theories and the issues that we've talked about throughout class. So they might want to, we talk about in um, representation in children's media, and so they might want to create a children's show that they would air on PBS that talks to children directly about race and representation. So that's kind of the clunky way of me saying that my students volunteered to kind of waive doing that, and they're actually going to and they're Becca students, all of them are Becca students. So
Mhm.
they are going to support on the production side. They're going to, conceptualize it, develop it, and produce it.
I love that. And making connections with the local community schools.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I also, like you said, I love the cross-disciplinary collaboration there. I think we see a lot of that with our ExCo teachers.
Yes. Yeah.
They're able to bring in their different kind of understandings of how the disciplines intersect. But I love that other professors are doing that as well.
Thanks. And if we weren't all like in this weird COVID remote learning thing, I don't know if something like this would have happened. So
Yeah.
that's definitely one of the silver linings.
Nice. Look at the positives there. I like that. This next question kind of relates to our participation in solidarity with the workers, but especially since you've been with the SF State community for so long as an undergrad and so forth, how do you describe the SF State community, our history, our spirit, and why is that important to you, as a teacher and your students and all of that?
I love our students so much. I love our student population. When I think of our students, I just really think of resiliency. And they come from such different backgrounds, but I think a very working class background. We're a public state school. Um, and so they are balancing. I don't know about you, but when I was an undergrad, I was working one job and able to pay for my apartment, and I had my own room, and these these students now, at least before COVID, they were working 2, 3 jobs,
Yeah.
packed 2 to 3 to a room, but kept pushing, and I think it affected them. I think I always felt sad at that students. I didn't feel like students were really getting the full, even though it's a commuter school, they didn't get to have the full college experience where they got to like immerse themselves, kind of in the way I was saying earlier about like my math experience at community college. Like, there's experiences that you can get when you can fully immerse yourself in your education that you don't get when you're worried about um, making rent every month and juggling those three jobs. So um, what's my point? I don't know. I love our community. I love our students. It pains me to ever think about moving on. And I've formed so many great connections to students and faculty. And it's been really awesome for me meeting you. And I felt as a lecturer, I felt very isolated for a long time.
Mhm.
And, tapping into communities on campus, ExCo, programs through CETL,
Mhm.
Jolie, of course. And that has helped me feel like I'm a part of something bigger and making more of an impact than just in my classrooms.
Yeah. Yeah, big shout out to Seattle. I would have to say that they're doing an amazing job of bringing different departments together, and so I also definitely value meeting you, and thanks Seattle for that.
Yeah, definitely.
So, what is one of the reasons, and that you can tell us why it's so important for you to go out in solidarity for the workers?
Well, lots of reasons. For one, I think you and I are workers. Every faculty, every person on campus, whether it's administrators or staff or lecturers, or tenure track or tenured faculty, we are all workers. We labor to get things done, right? Um, and um, as lecturers, and I can't even tell you how glad I am that a lecturer is leading ExCo. I think we definitely have um, a, our own unique kind of perspective on things, and frankly, lecturers have a really hard time on campus. We are not paid well. We lack support. We, our um, our benefits are precarious. Um, the city's expensive.
Mhm.
There's just so many reasons. So I feel a deep connection to staff,
Mm.
because they're really in the same boat. They're oftentimes overlooked.
Mhm.
They're often underappreciated, underpaid, and it's just unconscionable to me. And they support our students too. They may not be in the classroom, but they are supporting education. And what I was going to say is that it's unconscionable to me that we would lay off anybody who has given so much to our university and to our students during a pandemic, when they could be losing their, this will likely cause individuals and families to lose their health care. And I think that there are I don't know what the other options are, but I don't think that this is the only one. So I want them to know. I want our staff to know that that we stand in solidarity with them. But I want all workers to know it's so important that we, as workers, as students, as student workers, as faculty,
Mhm.
that we are united, because that's where the power is.
Yeah, amazing. You talked about the resiliency of our students as lecturers and as staff, and like you said, we are all in this together, and we can help each other be resilient in lots of different ways.
Absolutely.
Um, and I love how you make the connection to not just SF state workers, but yeah, the workers. We got to think more broadly about the economy and the whole state of maybe even thinking about what the American dream means anymore for our students and that kind of thing. If we talk about this with them.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because that's actually something that I've raised in my department, and I think about a lot. Is especially in our field, in video production, and audio production, we're sending out people who are now really, I mean, we're sending out contract workers in mass, and we've gotten so used to it because of the gig economy here.
Mm.
But I don't think frankly, as a department and probably as a university, we're doing a good enough job informing our students that, that's not always the best option. It might work for some people, maybe it's nice to have gigs here and there, and it allows you to be flexible. And um, I don't turn my nose up at that at all.
Yeah.
But we need to be having deeper conversations with ourselves as educators, with ourselves as an institution, and with our students about, um, what their futures are like as workers.
Yeah, very interesting. Do you play a role? Remind me. Do you play a role in the union? Are you a CFA rep?
Yes, I am. So I am for if the students are listening to this, our faculty union is called the California Faculty Association. And we have chapters on each CSU campus. And so we're the, San Francisco CFA chapter. And I am a department lecturer rep for Becca, and Marie Drennan um, our tenure and tenure track faculty rep for Becca. And I laugh because I didn't realize that I think well, I told I told Marie, I promise I'm not like single white femaling her, or I'm like trying to assume her identity, because she's in CFA, she's a rep, she's working with you on the board on here. But I think, we just really have, we participated in similar, CAP courses together. So I think, she and I just have a lot in common as far as our interests and truly how, we feel about our students and wanting to support them.
Yeah, it's amazing that Maria and you came together, and you're both part of ExCo and
Yeah.
representing Becca well, and all that.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, great. Well, last question, kind of the closing question. I want to emphasize more and more with teachers, both the ExCo teachers and ourselves, as a little bit more experienced teachers, the nature of inquiry. So what questions do you still have about teaching in general?
Oh, I question every day how to plan out a whole semester. How prepared do you need to be before the semester unrolls? And the one thing I've just learned by default is that you don't have to have all the answers the first time you teach, right? You can't possibly. You could spend months and months like planning out your courses, but once you're in the classroom, it's different. It's a different beast. So the learning and growth comes from teaching it over and over again, developing your course, and then of course the challenge of having new classes. I still wonder, I've looked at different ideas and theories about how you break up a class, how much lecture versus how much group time versus showing a documentary versus that. And sometimes, rather than overthinking it, I just have to kind of go with the flow a little bit. And so I think I will forever have questions about teaching. I know I will never have the answers. And I think it will always change depending on our students too. I think it's really different from one campus to the next, even within the CSU. And I imagine geographically it's different, demographically it's different. So I think you have to be kind of flexible and really read your students.
Yeah, I think that's really, really great advice for any teacher, is to be flexible. Yeah. And adaptable, and not think you have to have all the answers, because often we definitely do, as younger teachers especially.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Erica, for the interview and for being such a positive part of the ExCo community. And I hope that you'll partner with us in the faculty advisory board for many semesters to come.
I plan on it, and I would just really appreciate everything that you are doing and everything that that Kathy and Marie did to get this program up and running again. And I've already learned, and just in the short time that I've been working with you guys, I've learned so much about teaching and about I think really truly about equity, what that means. So I appreciate that.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.